Welcome, Off-Season After Dark fans. Glad to have you here for episode 48. We're rounding in on that 52 number. But for the second time this week, we have another Big 12 school to talk about. So we have Seth here from Trust the Beard to talk about West Virginia football and a team I have wanted to dive into all offseason, pretty much ever since they got Cam Cook in the portal, which I thought was a massive pickup. So, Seth, glad to have you here. Let's just tell the audience a bit what got you following Mountaineer football and then what got you into the space, doing a podcast and covering the team.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. This
Absolutely.
is awesome. I'm always up for talking about college football, specifically WVU.
Yeah.
Honestly, just being a fan of West Virginia, that pretty much started at birth. It's kind of like a birthright, the whole family, Mountaineer fans.
Yeah.
I went to school there, graduated. I'm from West Virginia. It's kind of our team.
Yeah.
Now I know southern part of the state, they root for Huntington and Marshall and stuff like that. But for the majority, if you're from West Virginia, most likely you're a Mountaineer fan. So that's it's just always been in my blood, I guess you could say.
And I get that. Like for me, I didn't go to the University of Minnesota, but I'm from Minnesota, and everybody's kind of a Gopher to some extent.
Right.
Like it's the same concept. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've probably heard it many times, especially from Coach Rod and other people. We don't have a pro team.
Yeah.
Anything like that. So really all the energy is focused on collegiate sports. So
it is. Yeah.
And then what got me in the podcast space, it's just something I've always thought about doing. Me and my friends and family, we'll sit there and talk about Mountaineer football and sports in general. And I really got into it. I got into stats and analytics and just tracking stuff. And, one day I thought, you know what, I could probably do a podcast. And so I just started, and that was 2021, I believe, was my first one.
Certainly longer than I've been doing it.
Yeah, I don't get to do it as often as I'd like, just busy with family and stuff like that. But certainly when football season rolls around, I kind of make time for it. But it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. No, that's good to hear. So let's kind of dive right into the Mountaineers. I mean, we're looking at this year, coming off of a 4-8 season, which was Rich Rod's first year back at the program. So considering all the changes, you guys had 4-8 last year and 2-7 in the conference. Was the feeling good after last year? Disappointing, about what you guys expected? What, after the season was done, how did you guys feel about it?
Well, I think it was, at least for me, it was kind of fluid. Overall, the 4-8 record was disappointing from what I thought we would do at the beginning of the season. I was thinking probably like 6-6, at least get a bowl for the first year. We'll start there. And there were some people that predicted we wouldn't have a good year. And I think we underestimated the roster turnover. And not only that, but like the level of talent that came in.
Okay.
It wasn't up to par. And that's, it can happen in a first year coach, right? You're kind of behind the 8 ball as far as recruiting. He was hired late December. So, all your best players are already committed somewhere. So you're just kind of trying to find diamonds in the rough. But I would say as the season went on and we saw that it was just going to be a long year, I think we were a little hopeful towards the end. Starting, of course, we beat Pitt. We beat our rival in overtime. That was huge. Then we had a long stretch there in the middle. It was at Kansas, Utah, and I forget who else it was.
BYU was in that mix.
Yeah, BYU. Yeah. That was brutal.
I remember watching that TCU game. That was tight. That was the battle.
We hung tough with TCU. So that kind of gave us a little promise, like, look, we can do this. Then we beat Houston on the road. They were ranked. We came.
So my most recent episode was Houston. We talked about that a little. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we went on the road, or we beat Colorado. We went on the road and gave Arizona State all they could handle. We came up short, last second field goal. I think we lost by like 2. Of course, Texas Tech, that was going to be a loss no matter what. But you could start to see from that TCU game on, we started to come together as a team a little bit. Now, the talent level didn't really increase. We had a freshman quarterback in Scotty Fox Jr., who kind of stepped up when he had to. He kind of was almost like our Alamo. He was like our last defense, our last option. And so I thought as a freshman, he handled it pretty well. He broke a bunch of records for a freshman quarterback at WVU. And so, to answer your question overall, I think initially it was disappointing, but as we realized that it wasn't ever going to be a good season regardless, you started to see some pieces come together at the end. And then, of course, in the off season, I think our hopes are a little bit higher this year.
Yeah. And it's interesting for me, and in starting this channel last summer, it was very easy and convenient to kind of lump you guys and UCF together, same conference. You're bringing back a former head coach.
Right.
And looking at both teams, I'm like, I like the steps they're taking. I think in the long run, it's going to be good. But in 2025, I don't know if either of them are going to win a lot of games. That essentially is what happened in both places. But I don't think you're a year behind by any means. It was just maybe some expectations for both schools were too high right away. And for both schedule and roster reasons, like you had just mentioned.
Right.
But then, this off season, you did a good job, I think. And I mean, one of the guys I had mentioned, you bring in Cam Cook in probably one of the top 3 transfer portal running backs in the country. And that bell cow back in a Rich Rod system is usually a very good player. Of course, unfortunately, last year that guy got hurt early in the season. That tough to overstate that Jaheim White injury and how big of a deal that was last year, because he was a dude.
Oh yeah, and I strongly believe that if he doesn't even get hurt in the Ohio game, I think we probably beat Ohio, because
absolutely. I was watching that game. Absolutely.
Yeah, we didn't make a lot of plays in that game, and the few that were made by him. And then, of course, he goes out.
I mean, you guys couldn't get a first down after he went out of the game.
Yeah. It's just, but that was more O-line issues than anything else. But still, you're right. And I actually, just to do a shameless plug here, I just dropped an episode last night. You can find it on YouTube at Trust the Beard. I actually break down, those injuries and what it cost us. And it was like if you lose a QB1, a running back 1, and a wide receiver 1, who was Jaden Bray going into last season, it's like your win probability drops from 18 to 30%. It's huge.
When we get done with this, can you DM me that link and I will embed it in this? So
absolutely.
Watch that. That would be good. I also would very much like to see that. That's
absolutely.
Topic.
And so just the injuries alone, let alone it's the first year and all that stuff, just losing key guys early in the season really hurt. Now, would it made a difference in Kansas or Utah or BYU? Probably not. But some of the other ones like Ohio and TCU and Arizona State, it probably would have made a difference, because those were single-digit defeats.
Yeah, certainly those, the two I think of right away, TCU and Arizona State. But just 2 games, we're then talking, okay, you're 6-6, then you're going to a bowl game. And that's a successful year 1 for a new head coach.
Right.
So it totally changes how we're feeling and the narrative about year 1 itself.
Right.
So, and then looking at the QB position. So on our group show, which we do Thursday nights, I was telling them, this is even before you and I had scheduled this episode, but Steve, our Locked On Ole Miss guy, and I, we had been rehashing some Oklahoma stuff, and I said, and now you have Michael Hawkins at West Virginia, and he's like, oh, that dude was made in a lab to play QB for Rich Rod. It's like, yeah, the QBs he's had that have been successful possess a lot of similar traits. So
Right.
in looking at that position, why is Michael Hawkins such a good fit for Rich Rod? Can you tell the audience that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost is just pure athleticism.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like sticking, a skill position guy, like a wide receiver, cornerback, something like that, in the QB spot, and he can also throw.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you're getting a true dual threat guy, but mostly it is his ability to run and scramble and get upfield. That's
Yeah.
what one of the things that Rich Rod covets the most out of his quarterback, because his philosophy is, if I can get a quarterback that runs, that's an 11th guy that the defense has to worry about.
Yeah.
And
And
so, if you put a spy on him or something like that, now you have 11 on 11.
Yeah.
And so you can't double team or key on one guy if he's going to be a threat to run.
And you worded it nicely there. I think that a lot of people, the connotation of running QB, it's you're going to roll out, get up the sidelines if people, aren't, if you have nobody spying you. But in the Rich Rod offense, it's that north and south QB running, that you're going downhill, and it can be from any point in the field that you can get upfield. And that's
right. And it's also not just mobility, but it's decisiveness. So as soon as he gets that snap, he takes one or two reads. If something's not there, use your God-given ability. And, if you pick up 5, 6, 7 yards, well, now you're, 2nd and 3 or 3rd and 3 or whatever the case may be. It's just another tool or another weapon that the defense has to worry about. And it's not really something that we've had behind center in a while.
No.
We did have Garrett Green, and I think he would have done well under Rodriguez because his athletic ability, but he was kind of forced more into an air raid system.
Yeah.
That I don't think it highlighted his strong suits
It did
enough.
not. No. And I don't think he's as good in the Rich Rod system as Hawkins. Very few are, but
right.
He did possess that north-south running ability that could have been a tool in the offense. Because he was a strong, stout, tough kid.
Oh yeah, willing, hard-nosed kid, and that's another thing with Rich Rod, and really any of his players at any position, is you have to be tough, mentally tough, and you have to love football.
Yeah.
And, he wants his guys not to just like it, but like love it, like it's the world to them. And everything I know about Michael Hawkins, the limited stuff that I've been able to get on him, he seems like that kid. And from all accounts, it looks like he is going to be the number one guy. I know Fox is, he's kind of the incumbent from last year, who ended up being our QB number one at the end. But
a guy like Hawkins probably doesn't go there unless there's a good chance he's going to be the number one.
Right. And for a good chunk and a good chunk of money too to get him there. But you're right. He probably doesn't leave an SEC team like that, like Oklahoma, and come here unless really the offense is going to be centered around him and Cam Cook, I believe.
But I would be shocked if it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, and again, to answer your question, that's key to a Rodriguez quarterback, is just your athleticism and your mobility. And another one that he likes to say is your willingness to run, not just your ability, but your willingness to put your face in the fan and just take off.
Will Max Brown be the number 3 then? Many of our SEC centric viewers will remember him from his Florida Gator days before he was at Charlotte. So that's why I bring him up, and I did think he was still on the roster.
Yeah, most likely he'll be number 3, but I don't know how much time he'll actually get to see. If anything, it's
or not. Yeah.
If anything, it's some mop up duty. If we're blowing somebody out, maybe we got UT Martin, second game of the season. So maybe it'll be that one. But
I've not had one viewer or guest this offseason that has said we're in good shape if the third QB's playing. So that's
right.
Not how it is.
Yeah, it usually doesn't work like that.
No. But let's talk running back. The guy that I think I'm the most excited to talk about. Cam Cook, who last year at Jacksonville State, over 1,600 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. And despite what most people think, he never was with Rich Rod there. He was at TCU the year before.
Yeah.
So it's not like they were, he's following him and they were together. Not the case. But he was a stud last year.
Right.
So let's talk about, in the portal, he entered and was instantly, I think him and Hawkins from North Texas were right away the two top running backs that everybody's kind of looking at of where are these guys going to go. So Cook, ends up at WVU and major coup. I'll be honest, I was a little surprised when I saw that, like, whoa, that's a massive pickup for them. This is a really good piece to have. He fits that offense perfectly. I think his ability to run both between the tackles and outside is very good. He is tough. He's holding onto the ball. He was a very adept receiver. He had 30 catches last year, so they're using him in all assets of the game. What are your impressions of Cam Cook? And especially, I can't say I paid attention to spring ball much. How has he looked since he's been on campus?
Well, I think Mountaineer fans are, beyond excited about him coming in. He is, you said it before, a true bell cow. Like, he is the guy that's going to, he's going to tote the rock, 8 out of 10 times, most likely.
Yeah.
And you talked about his rushing yards. If you go back through, and this is part of the episode I had too, if you go back through all the seasons that Rich Rod, I believe this was the stat I had. Anytime he had won 8 games or more, you look at their the rushing total for the number one running back, and by far they're one of the best running backs in the country. We're talking 1,800 yards, 1,500 yards, double-digit touchdowns, things like that.
Well,
and I averaged it all up, and Cam Cook, was above the average in yards. He averaged about the same in touchdowns, things like that. And so
I'm big in a college football fantasy league, and right when that happened, one of my close friends who I'm in it with, we had the comment of, that's massive, because he instantly becomes one of the top draftable guys, because the number one back in that Rich Rod system is a dude. It's just the way it is. Yeah.
Right. And you made the point about, he didn't play at Jacksonville State with Rodriguez, but he played with Rick Trickett, who's the O-line coach that just came from Jacksonville State. So, I don't know how much a running back and an O-line coach overlap. I'm sure there's something in practice, so they at least have that familiarity. And then, of course, Trickett's a longtime assistant of Rodriguez through the years. So I think that kind of gives him a little extra push early, understanding what's needed of him. And really, one of the big things about the running back is how the O-line performs as well. Creating holes and things like that. But like you said, the North and South, that's how Rodriguez wants to run. He's not so much an East and West guy. He might throw some screens in there, but he wants to get up and down. He wants to go North and South. If he had his way, he would rush 500 yards a game in zero passing yards.
Yeah.
If in the ideal game, he wouldn't have to throw a pass. But everything about him, as far as I've seen, he looks great. He's got a good backup behind him that we think is going to be the backup, Amari Latimer, a freshman. He had like 36 Power 5 offers. The who's who of college football was after him, and we landed him. So I think that 1-2 punch, especially with Cook, we're going to see a much different offense this year. And it's rhythm based. And so when you can get into that rhythm, you can start to make things happen. That's just something we couldn't do last year. We were a lot of second, third, and long, just couldn't get anything going. So I think fans, we think with Cook, Rick Trickett and all that stuff, it's going to be an upgrade. And I think we're looking to be a top rushing team in the country.
Yeah. And you guys have 3 new starters on the O-line, but 2 of them transferred with Trickett. So you have Cam Griffin and Amari Grayson that, center and guard that come with Trickett. And a guy who, when the portal started and opened up, you ended up getting Carson Cassidy, who was one of the better O-tackles in the portal. A guy played at UConn last year. 2 of the UConn O-linemen ended up being 2 of the better guys in the portal. But, I would be shocked if Cassidy doesn't start at left tackle for you guys. I mean, he's a horse of a guy, 6'7", 300 pounds. He looks the part of an NFL body. I mean, a taller, massive arms, big guy. I think Cassidy's going to be a very good player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and like you said, the other 2, it was Grayson and
Cam Griffin. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the additions that we made at O-line, that might be the biggest upgrade in college football. Like, I don't know if you'll see one unit upgraded in talent and experience as much as we did our O-line. Because, last year we brought in some veteran guys, but they didn't have a lot of experience. And I think everybody we brought in this time was a starter at their previous school. And I believe a number of them, I know at least one hasn't given up a sack. That might be the guy from UConn you were just talking about.
Yeah, Cassidy.
Cassidy. I'm pretty sure he didn't give up a sack. We got a guy from Kansas State. I don't have all the names in front of me, but
Devin Voss. Yeah, Devin Voss.
Yeah, I think just overall the depth, the not just potential, but the actual production that we brought in, it's just going to be world difference this year. And of course, we got Kevin Brown, flipped him out of Penn State. His dad played for Rodriguez.
I didn't know that, actually, that his dad was a Rich Rod guy. Okay. So that's interesting. I think we might have a freeze on us here, but that's okay. We'll continue to go through that West Virginia O-line. The spots we didn't talk about, Nick Cron is a left guard, and he returns there. We expect him to be that starter at left guard. At least most of the depth charts I've looked at have seen him there. And then the other spot we are looking at is right tackle. A little more uncertainty there. We have Malik Agbo is a guy I've seen listed as the starter in some cases. He formerly played for the Texas Longhorns. And then Andreas Hunter is a redshirt freshman, another guy I've seen as a possible right tackle. But also Devin Voss, the K-State transfer, is one who has played both inside and outside. So it'll be interesting where he ends up. I'm not quite sure who will be in that right tackle spot for West Virginia. But we'll move on. Hopefully we can get our guest back with us. But at tight end, we're going to have multiple transfer portal guys came in to go along with Ryan Ward, who did play there last season. So Ryan Ward was on the roster, played in 12 games, formerly was at North Carolina, but did play for the Mountaineers last year. And then in the portal, we had a few interesting ones. Cam Ball was at Mississippi State, 6'7", 250, massive-bodied guy. And then Josh Sapp was at Clemson last year, and he's going to be more of that H-back type guy, 6'2", 235 guy who, in that Rich Rod system, probably is going to be playing as a wing or as a tight end in 12 personnel. Then Caden Luke, a transfer from Arizona, listed at tight end, though on some depth charts you will see they list him at fullback. So he's certainly an H-back type guy. But that, again, was Caden Luke. We'll now move on to the defensive side of the ball. And looking at that, we are in the Rich Rod system as usual. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
That's okay. Yeah, there was just a freeze and then I kept going. So I talked about the tight ends when you were getting back on. We're now going to move over to the defensive side of the ball. Sound all right?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So looking at the defensive side of the ball, Zach Alley, D coordinator, was last year. Formerly, he was with Rich Rod at Jacksonville State and then did a stint at Oklahoma in between his years there. So, but looking at the defensive side of the ball, what were the feelings about the defense last year? I didn't mention, but the kind of the Rich Rod standard, the 3-3-5, they definitely do a unique defensive setup. We saw it at Marshall last year with Tony Gibson.
Right.
Was formerly a WVU guy, was at NC State and is now our head coach. So what was the defense like last year? We didn't talk about that.
Well, last year, it was a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is just you have so many new guys, the roster turnover. It's the first year head coach. I liken it a lot to when Rodriguez came into WVU the first time.
Okay.
Right. Kind of a young up and coming coach. He's a hot name. His defenses are, I guess you call it progressive, exotic, however you want. He schemes week to week. I don't know that he really has a set base defense. It's just kind of fluid. Like
they are very multiple. Yeah.
Yeah, very multiple. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. But I knew it was interesting with Allie when you have a guy who's a D coordinator at an FBS school at ULM, then you leave to take a coordinator position at an FCS school. You certainly have to have a vision and see something in the other guy if you're doing that. He had to see that in Rich Rod if you're going to make that jump.
Right. And from what I understand, I guess their personalities are pretty similar as far as, they have very high standards. They demand, almost perfection, discipline, stuff like that. So I think getting adjusted to all of that in the first year was hard. We did well against the run, not so well against the pass. We were in the bottom fourth of college football for most of the season as far as yards given up, yards per play, things like that in the passing game. But the one thing that he brought to the table was something that we have been missing for many years, and that's turnovers.
Okay.
And we were I believe it was 37th in the country last year with 1.6 turnovers per game. That was our highest ranking since 2018. Was Dana Holgerson's last year.
Okay.
We were number 10. We were averaging 2 turnovers a game. And just there for a while under Neil Brown, it's just something we could not do. And when you're building a young program, that's something if you can rely on that, that's huge because that gives your offense, a lot more opportunity. Obviously takes away the opponent's opportunity to score. So that's really a staple of his defense's takeaways, and he tries to get 3 a game is like their standard.
Right.
He said if you do that, you're top 10 in the country.
Yeah, that's a very ambitious number to get 3 per game.
Right. But I think that kind of lends itself to the high turnover that we have. It kind of is the great equalizer. If you don't have the most talent, what can you do? Well, if you take away the ball a lot, that kind of evens the playing field a little bit. Yeah. So I think in year 2 with him, more roster turnover. There are some question marks, especially in the secondary, because we only have 1 starter returning, I believe, at linebacker.
Yeah.
That's Ben Cutter. But again, like with Rodriguez, with Alley, I think it's just a matter of year 2 is going to be a little bit smoother. The guys that are back know what's happening. You've had a year to go get guys that you want, not so much guys that you got to just fill a roster spot with.
Yeah,
So I think that'll make a big difference.
I was looking at that depth chart on defense, and the ones and twos, so the top 22 guys, only 7 of them were on the roster last year. That's a lot of new blood coming in.
Yeah,
so.
and I think our hope is it's new blood, but it's better blood or more productive blood.
And I think it will be, because you brought in some guys. Zeke Durham Campbell was very good at Coastal Carolina. He'll be one of those BN guys. KJ Henson, I can't say I've ever watched him play, but he was one of the higher rated JUCO guys, coming out of Hutchinson. And then Harper Holloman, is another guy that came in from Western Kentucky. He should be that other edge guy. So you're looking at guys there who at least should help you get after the quarterback, which is going to help you create more turnovers up front. So, and then the defensive backs, this is the group where I didn't know as much about some of these guys. Kamari Wilson was a name in the portal who I had, knew about. He was at Memphis, a safety coming there. Jacob Bradford came over from LSU. And then Latimer, the corner who came in from Wisconsin, who's kind of a slot nickel, defender type guy. But were there any names with the defensive backfield that, our fans should be looking out for, guys that have looked good or the coaches have been talking about this offseason?
I think Latimer is going to be one of them. His I talked about the running backs, the Amari Latimer, so they're brothers.
Yep. Okay.
And actually, the Amari committed first out of high school to West Virginia. I think he kind of talked his brother into coming over too. They played a little bit in high school. So I think he's one of them. It's really hard to say because now this is going to sound bad as a Mountaineer fan, but I don't know a lot of them.
Okay.
I know some names that you've mentioned, but it's hard to know what they're going to do at this level. But I think one of the things the coaches emphasized across the board is not just potential, but actual production. They want guys that have, been through college football and have shown, they're one of the better players on the field every time they step on. And so it's. I think the biggest question mark on the defense in total is, like I said, is probably the secondary, because there's so many new faces. But another thing is they wanted to get bigger bodies. And they said a lot about last year was we had guys in position to make plays, but they weren't big enough to make them or talented enough.
Speaking of that, being at Marshall now with Sunbelt guy, Chams Diagne, who was a corner at Georgia State last year, and they really struggled. But he's a boundary corner who is 6'3", over 200 pounds. That's a lanky, long guy to be playing that position. So it makes a lot of sense if you're talking about just wanting to get bigger all over the field. And that makes a lot of sense. One of the guys I did see who's coming back was Fred Perry. Nick Taylor was the guy I was thinking of. But what about Taylor? At corner, like he's a former Appalachian State guy, but was with you guys last year. Played a good chunk of the season. I saw he had a few tackles, an interception, but a lot of new guys at that position, all over the defensive backfield. So.
And to go back to, I got the roster pulled up now. To go back to your question, one of the guys I think maybe is the most intriguing, at least to me, is Matt Sieg. He's a freshman.
Oh yeah.
We just got him out of Pennsylvania. We flipped him from Penn State. He might be a two-way player. That's what Rodriguez has talked about. They may try to use him some. But as a true freshman, I wouldn't be surprised to see him out there. From everything I've heard, he's a very coachable guy, very athletic, understands, pretty early on what they're trying to do. I think that's a guy people
One of the
will look at, just for the fact that he is a true freshman. And then, like you said, Kamari Wilson, I think that's another one that we'll probably look at too, to make a big splash. You said he came from Memphis, Arizona State, Florida, and he was at IMG
one of the
Academy
depth charts
too.
I saw was okay. Yeah, you're getting good competition playing at IMG. One of the depth charts I looked at did list Sieg as the starter at free safety, and especially with the P4 conferences, you don't see many depth charts that list a true freshman as a starter. They did with him, so that does tell me that the coaches there are high on him, and a lot of things are, in his favor. So looking at,
it's still July. There's a lot of time left before we kick the ball off, so a lot of stuff could change. But I think those are probably the two guys. Like I said, secondary is really going to be what we focus on. I think the most. Second, probably the defensive line is, can we get pressure? That's another thing that Ali is big on, is pressure. His whole philosophy is pressure, burst pipes. And so
it's a good way to put it.
And if you do have an inexperienced secondary, that's a good way to help him out, is forcing the quarterback to make decisions a lot quicker. So we'll just have to see how that goes this season. But I would say overall, if you're looking at every single unit, certainly defense has the biggest questions, and I'd say secondary of the defense probably does too.
Yeah. No, I think that's very accurate. So let's, move on to the schedule. So, I asked you a little bit, feelings about last year. Going into this season, what are expectations?
Well, as you know, Vegas has us at what, like 5.5? I think the over/under for the season.
I can tell you that I have the.
To put it bluntly, I think most Mountaineer fans think that's BS. That they only gave us 5.5, and it's understandable. You're turning over a whole new roster. There's not many guys on the team that played last year. I think in total there's 30 that came back. So you're talking like 80 new transfers, something like that.
Yeah.
But I think the feeling overall is pretty optimistic. I think most people think of us probably somewhere in that 6, 7, 8 range comfortably. And the reason for that is, an upgraded talent, O-line, running back, quarterback, bringing Rick Trickett at O-line, but also it's the scheduling.
Yeah.
Last year, and again, this is on the episode I dropped yesterday. Last year, we had 0 back-to-back home games. Oh, it was all home away, and then we had 2 away games, one at Central Florida and then one at, I forget where that one was. Maybe
Central Florida. It says at BYU, at UCF, then TCU is at home.
Yeah, that's right. And so we had no back-to-back home games. I think out of the first 7, we only had 3 home games. So it was a hard stretch early on, and you combine that with having such an inexperienced team, hasn't had time to gel, things like that. It was a rough slate. Now this year,
I just checked. 5.5 is the projected win total.
Yeah. So this year we have 3 back-to-back home games. And we start out that way with Coastal, and then we got UT Martin.
Yeah.
After that, and then a neutral game at Charlotte against
Virginia.
And then out of the first 7 games, 5 of them are at home. So we kind of ease into it a little bit, and I say that I think we need to make some hay while the sun's shining, because the latter part of the schedule gets a little tougher. Now we at least get Arizona and Cincinnati at home, and then we get Kansas and Houston at home. Later part of the schedule.
Only 4 road games. That's true. There's the new
right.
Yeah, that's promising. Yeah.
If you know anything about WVU fans in Charlotte, we come out in droves there. There's a lot of WVU alumni stationed there. So while that is a neutral game and technically, I guess, kind of a away game, I think it's going to be a packed house of WVU
Oh yeah.
fans. Just it's an easy travel, from where I live. It's like 5 hours, so not too bad.
I would expect both fan bases to have an easy time to get there. So yeah.
But I think the schedule it's a little bit more manageable overall, right? You get some breaks, some back-to-back games, and you kind of ease into it a little more. I think that alone is probably worth a couple wins,
Yeah.
from last year. But overall, I think for the most part, fans are pretty optimistic. I think we know for sure 4 or 5 wins is not going to happen. Like that's just
Yeah.
it's almost I wouldn't say it's impossible because things happen, but the way Rodriguez is and the way he coaches and his philosophies and culture and all that, like there's no way we're staying stagnant about 4 or 5
No, I
wins.
certainly think they'll improve. And even improving one game and being 5-7, while it is progress, I think that might even be a little disappointing.
Oh yeah,
To end up being
100%.
the final. So this is the one projection I had, and to me that 1-8 conference projection, this seems pretty light. So
Right. And the one I really I struggle with when I see these, and I've seen quite a few, is having
yeah,
Oklahoma State at number 8.
yeah. And I think they might be the most improved Power Four team, but that's because they can only get better. They were
Right.
so bad last year.
Right.
But I don't. I mean, I would be surprised if they get more than 4 conference wins.
Right. I mean, like you said, they'll be most improved. I mean, they improve 100%. That means they have 2 wins.
Yeah.
and, and and again, I don't think they'll be as bad as last year. No way. But having a brand new head coach, right? All the roster turnover that you have as well. And I think it's a matter of just the success he had at North Texas. Is probably, and he got quite a few players from there.
We've talked, on our SEC After Dark that Oklahoma State's in a very similar situation to Auburn, where you got a G6 head coach who took a good chunk of his roster with him to a power conference. Well, sure, they might know the system, but there's also a reason they weren't at that level before. So that goes both ways.
And I think what helps West Virginia is our first Big 12 game is against Oklahoma State.
Yes.
At home. So we get to be their introduction for that coaching staff and those players for the Big 12. I'll actually be at that game, so I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, so other than that, I think that's pretty fair standing. Kansas State at number 2. I don't know about that, but
that roster looks all right. But that to me, tough not to have Texas Tech and BYU at 1 and 2 right now. They've done nothing has happened between the end of last season, which would make me put somebody else above the 2 of them where they ended last year.
Yeah.
I am high on Houston and Arizona this year. I said that in our last episode. I think both those 2 will be good. Utah, there's a lot of questions around for me.
Yeah, me too.
Whittingham did a great job there, but that's a lot of change after 20 years of stability. I don't know if it happens in year 1.
Right. And I had said this before that, Utah was always a tough brand of football, right? There was a hard-nosed defense. They were physical. It's hard to play out there, especially at night. We have to go out there on Black Friday, I believe is when it is. It's definitely a Friday, but I'm pretty sure it's Black Friday, playing at 9:00 at night. I mean, we pretty much figure that's
November 27th. That is Black Friday.
Yeah. And so, but I was like, all that toughness and a hard place to play and things like that, was that Utah or was that Whittingham? And I kind of think the coach really exudes that kind of
and their old coordinator went with him.
Right.
So,
yeah. Same thing with Iowa State. Like they're completely rebuilding. That was a tough place to play, but I believe that was the coach, right? He made that place tough.
And I like the Jimmy Rogers hire. I think long-term he will be very good, but I don't think they're going to be great in year 1 because of all they lost. Their QB Rayner was at Arkansas State last year. He followed the old coordinator there, Heckendorf, but almost a totally new roster at Iowa State. They could be in for it.
I would say I know a lot of us expect Cincinnati to take a step too under Satterfield. I think they have like one of the most experienced D lines in the Big 12. I think I thought I
Interesting.
heard that on a
Yeah.
podcast the other day. It might have been Phil Steele actually, who was kind of breaking down some Big 12 teams.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, they had struggled his first 2 years, and then last year made a big jump to get to a winning record and go to a bowl game.
yeah.
So
And we have Houston at home late in the season, late November. So hopefully that kind of plays in our favor a little bit, especially if it's really cold. I don't know how they would be able to handle it.
yeah.
It
Well,
just depends. But
yeah.
um,
The other one I was going to say with Cincinnati, quick, their new D coordinator had been the D coordinator at Army and always had good.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
you're playing hyper complementary football, so it is somewhat of an advantage at the service academies, but still, Nate Woody was a good D coordinator at Army
Yeah.
and at Cincinnati. Now, I don't know what to make of UCF this year. They're one of those teams. Who knows? I don't know what we're going to see out of them. So
Yeah, it's hard to say. They put it to us pretty bad last year. Now we don't play them this year, but I haven't followed them too closely. But it's one of those. They feel like a coin flip. I'm not really sure, and not just for next year, but in future seasons, I'm just not sure how that's going to work out. It's hard to say because he had so much success there, Scott Frost.
he did.
And then you expect that in like Nebraska, and it just did not work out at all. And so, are they hiring a guy hoping that he's bringing back that old swagger he had before? Of course, they could say the same thing about West Virginia and Rodriguez.
Yeah.
But I think Rodriguez has proved a little bit more in that time since he's left, at least at Jack State, while Frost really hasn't. I mean, that was
and a big difference, I think, between those two. Rich Rod has won at multiple schools at the power conference level.
right.
Frost really was never a winner at the power conference level. It's a
Right.
different. It's not the same playing field as it was when he was winning at UCF the first time.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. Going into, we'll kind of get to our last segment now. Going into this year, who do you think is on the hottest coaching seat in the Big 12? My vote, I've said Dave Aranda several. I've been forthright with that.
Yeah, that would be mine too. I can't imagine if they go anything less than 6-7 wins. I don't even know.
I don't even know if 7 would keep his job.
Right? Yeah, because I mean, when you had Art Briles there, you had RG3. You're winning the Heisman. You're playing in the Big 12 title. He had that one good year. Aranda did, and he hasn't been able to sustain it for whatever reason.
Their projected win total is 6.5, and certainly you're going to need DJ Lagway to have a good year to do that. So
yeah, I think it's interesting that he chose Baylor. Of course, they could be giving him a lot of money to go there.
Yeah,
it may not have been my spot out of leaving from. He was at Florida.
He was at the Gators. Yeah,
yeah. And so, but to answer your question, I 100% think it's Aranda. I think every other coach is fairly new, or at least settled into being there for a while. Like they've, like Sonny Dykes with TCU, like he's not going anywhere.
No, every other coach I feel like gets a mulligan year. Where if everybody else, if you have a god awful year, you at least get another chance. He's probably the only one that doesn't.
Well, I think he's probably the longest tenured one at this point, or at least close to it, I would think.
I actually have that.
At least as far as being in the Big 12. Because, we've had a lot of changing of the guards in the Big 12 lately.
Lots of it.
He was there 2021, I think, is when he got hired.
I was wrong. He's the second longest. Kalani Satake is the longest. But they weren't in the conference the whole time.
Right. But he's the longest tenured that's been in the Big 12, we'll say.
So Satake's 10, Aranda's 6, Leopold is 5. Everybody else is 4 years or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love watching BYU and what
Yeah.
he's been able to do out
Always
there. It's just,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. Um, it's not an easy place to always recruit and
Yeah.
stabilize, but they have a big following,
They
right?
do.
They have a
Yeah.
national brand, just like
They
Notre
do.
Dame or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
Now,
oh,
one
good.
one question I always ask, and this will be our ending segment. What coach in the conference do you think, with one or two really good seasons, could get a blue blood or a way better job?
Oh,
This is always an interesting one.
yeah. I mean,
I feel like in this one, I don't know. This guy won't be my answer, but
just off the top of my head, Jan pops off. There's going to be bigger programs trying to get him from Colorado. Dion.
Okay, yeah, you cut
Yeah,
out there. That's why it blipped a bit there. That's
okay. Yeah, I was
going
gonna say if Dion ends up popping off and he's able to do what he did his first year at Colorado and then what he did at Jackson State.
He needs to prove he can win without Travis Hunter and Shitter, I think.
Right.
Because year 2 was good. Years 1 and 3 were not very good.
Yeah.
He was there.
I think if he ever gets to that level, he would be the number one just because of the name and who he is. But as far as
to me,
actual production,
Dillingham is a convenient answer. But if he was going to do it, it might have happened this offseason.
Yeah. And he played, I think he's from Arizona
He's
State.
an Arizona State
play
alumni.
there? Yeah. So
I talked about that with the Houston guy last episode. Like, being an alumni is an added nuance to this. And if he was going to leave, it might have been for Auburn this last year where he had coached before. Same with Satake. Satake could have probably went to Washington before or had some options, but he's a BYU alumni.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some others. I'm thinking maybe some young guys that have come in. Maybe what's his face that came into Oklahoma State.
Eric Morris. So Eric Morris was my answer to the Houston guy because I think another first-year one. Jimmy Rogers left Washington State after 1 year. Both of those two with a couple good seasons, you're probably getting an elite job. And we know because neither of those two have any ties to the program they're in.
Right, so right. I think that's a big key to it.
Like Willie Fritz and Sonny Dykes both might be at their retirement job.
Right, right.
So Brent Brennan is similar. I don't know if Brennan's leaving. He's not a spring chicken either, though I think Arizona is going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah, that really surprised me too. I did not think. Now they have great quarterback in Fafita.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like once he loses him, what's the program going to do?
It is.
Like with Colorado, we were just talking like when he lost Shador and Travis Hunter, they took a dive.
They did.
And honestly, like I said, I was surprised that Arizona did as well as they did last year.
I know. I was
just looking at his Brennan's resume. San Jose State, I think is where he came from. Not really anything impressive, so I was kind of surprised. But
again, he was like Aranda. They had the one really good year, then they were just kind of ho hum the other years.
Yeah. And so I kind of wonder if maybe that's where Arizona is going with him.
Yeah.
We'll see.
That was also a weird cycle because remember, Jed Fish took that job really late, so Arizona had to scramble late. Then get Brennan. Yeah.
But I think overall, I like the conference. I know a lot of people, and I can close out with this real quick. But
please do. Yeah.
I think a lot of Big 12 fans, WVU fans are starting to sour a little on the Big 12, only because not because it's not a good conference, but I think it's just the geography of it all. We've been in there since 2012, and we still don't have a rival that I would call. I think everyone hates Texas Tech, because all the offseason.
The rival should be Cincinnati, but it's not. Nobody would say that. Yeah.
I mean, I guess they would probably be the closest, because they're the closest regionally, and we've played them, I think, like 20 some times through our history, maybe less than that. But You know, and we were old Big East Conference foes there for a
I
little
forgot
bit.
about that too. Yeah.
Yeah, there for like a hot minute.
Yeah.
We were conference foes in the Big East, but
when the Big East wasn't the first edition of the Big East, but it wasn't the last one either. It was that transitory time when they were shuffling a lot.
right. And I
Yeah.
kind of feel like that's what the Big 12 is right now. Like we lost our heavy hitters, like we did with Miami and Tech and
Yeah.
Pitt and everything from the Big East, and now
Boston
we're kind of
College.
backfilling.
Yeah.
We're kind
It'll
of
be
trying to backfill, but
it will be interesting, and I think part of the fans, being down with the Big 12, the next round of conference realignment, either the Big 12 or ACC might get blown up by it. One of them may kind of cease to exist. I think the Big 12 is a little safer. Maybe I'm wrong, though. I don't know.
Yeah, probably because I don't know that there's not a team in the Big 12 right now that if they left or you pulled them, the whole thing could crumble.
Yeah.
Now in the ACC, you pull out Florida State and Clemson or Miami.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
That could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you have those three and SMU. Not only does it hurt the conference, but also they're very appealing for the other conferences to try to pull too.
Right.
So,
and I think Rodriguez, he had mentioned this at the Big 12 Media Days. He would like to see, he's like, why can't we just get 60 teams? We'll break up into divisions and we'll just have like the NFL model, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of all these conferences trying to get power hungry, like let's all make money together. Let's all, because the thing that college football is all about is rivalries. I always said the ACC back when they raided the Big East and all that, they were going for markets. Yep. They got Rutgers and they got Boston College and they got Syracuse. Nobody cares about Rutgers, Syracuse, and Boston College football. They don't in the Northeast. They want to see West Virginia Pitt or West Virginia Virginia Tech, or I liked watching the Holy War. I never got into it, but then they brought him into the Big 12, and I'm like, okay, we got like a legit rivalry in here now.
Yeah.
And so I think the more of those you can get, the better
and I
off
think
we'll all be.
Out of those schools that jumped to the ACC one time, probably Boston College might be the only desirable school for the conferences. Now, that Boston market probably is a real thing. It's a pretty good sports town. But if you're the Big Ten or SEC now looking to expand, Syracuse, Rutgers, they're not teams you're going to be looking at. And even Pitt maybe, because if you're looking at it from a business model and markets, you might figure we already have that city with Penn State. You might not need. Similar with Georgia Tech, it's like for the SEC, we already have Atlanta. We don't need Georgia Tech to get Atlanta.
Right.
You already
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for being here. Great. I love this episode talking about Mountaineer football and Rich Rod and everything. But for all of our viewers out there, I'll as usual, I'll tag everything so they can easily follow you here. But thanks for being here. Remember, everybody, that's Trust the Beard podcast and Earbeard on Twitter X. So thanks for being here. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I'm always up for talking college football, especially WVU.
Absolutely.
I'll keep an eye on the Herd this year too, since see what they do.
I think in Sunbelt they'll be pretty solid. So Big Ben, JMU, ODU will all be good in the East. So
right. So no, I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right,
Take care, everybody.